Nikola Jovic deserves more. He should get more playing time for the Miami Heat, and I am going to tell you why. The Jovic hive is standing up today. We've gotten him into the starting lineup, but now it's about getting him more PT in the actual games. I have a lot of fun statistics and stats to show you guys on Nikola Jovic. But first, before we get into that, I want to make sure you are following me on Twitter because I have more Miami Heat content on my Twitter every single day. And if you're missing out on content and you just want more Miami Heat stuff between videos and between live streams, the best way to go and do that is to follow me on Twitter at Nic_Rohloff. Let's get me to 800 followers. Let's climb and climb and climb. And maybe I'll do something special, hint, hint, when we get to 1,000 later on in the time frame. But let's get back to Nikola Jovic because he unlocks this Heat team in a variety of different ways. I said it in the offseason. I expected a big season for Nikola Jovic as he entered his second year in the NBA after being the 27th pick in the 2022 NBA draft. Now he has officially arrived, and I want to take a look at particularly the last 6 games for Nikola Jovic. Why the last 6, though, you ask? Well, that's because when he was inserted to the starting lineup, and he has stayed there since every game he has played. This started with the game against Milwaukee, 2 games before the All-Star break, obviously Philly, and then the 4 games he has played post-All-Star break as well. You see the efficiency, which is the biggest key for me. He's shooting 51% from the field and 50% from 3. Obviously, some of these numbers are inflated by that Milwaukee game where he had 24 points and led the Heat in scoring in that road win against the Bucks. But Jovic has done it all. He's been excellent offensively. He has been excellent defensively. And his height and versatility just brings a lot to this Miami Heat team. And the issue I have, and the reason why we're having this discussion, is you see it right now at the bottom of your screen. Even though he has been starting, in those last 6 games he has started, he has only played 20.6 minutes a night. That is less than half of the game. I believe he should be playing at least half of the game, so 24 minutes, or a little bit tick above at 25, which we'll get to in a while. But you can't deny the numbers and the winning percentage. In the 6 games that he has started since that Milwaukee game on February 13th, the Heat are 5-1. They're 6-1 in their last 7 because they did win the game against Sacramento where he was suspended. By the way, shout out to Jovic for standing up for his guy Jimmy and Jaquez. But there's no denying how good the Heat have played when he starts. It's like the Duncan Robinson theory as well. When these 2 guys play more and they start, the Heat win more basketball games. Obviously, there's other factors to go alongside as well, but these are just some ones at glance. We'll get to more advanced numbers in just a second. But what say you guys? Should Nikola Jovic get more minutes on this Miami Heat team? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Well, let's take a look at those advanced numbers because in the last 6 games, which we'll keep referring to that number of 6 because I'm only looking at those. I know we started about 18 games this season, but I'm only looking at since he was reinserted to the starting lineup after being out of the rotation for about a month. Offensive rating for the Heat and when Jovic is playing, 118.0. The defensive rating is at 113.3, which overall gives the Miami Heat and Nikola Jovic a net rating of 4.7. So the Heat, obviously, are playing better and beating their opponents on a nightly basis when Jovic is in the game for those 20.6 minutes a night. But now if you look at Jovic when he plays for the entire season, you just take away the last 6 games, I should say, and take the entire season. He's got a offensive rating of 116.5. Fun fact, that is actually better than Jimmy Butler's. His defensive rating is the part that is most intriguing to me because we talk about Jovic as an offensive weapon, but he has actually had a really strong defensive rating this year at 107.4, which is higher than Evan Mobley, who is a DPOY candidate, and guess what? OG Anunoby. And his net rating skyrockets to 9.1. So the Heat are simply just dominating their opponents when Jovic is on the court. The numbers back up why he should be on, and it unlocks a different Heat team like I mentioned at the top of the video. But there is one player specifically that is the most beneficial to Jovic in that starting lineup. It's Bam Adebayo. We'll talk about that in just a second. but we are starting the playoff push for Miami. They're currently 7th in the Eastern Conference, 8 games above 500. Subscribe to the channel now. Do not miss a thing, whether we're talking about a player needing to get more minutes, we're talking ball, the latest rumors. We will have it all. We also have weekly watch parties as we go live for almost every Miami Heat basketball game. Join us again for our next watch party on Tuesday against the Detroit Pistons. But now, outside of just his offensive and defensive rating impact, let's look at how Jovic shoots the rock, because he is arguably one of the best shooters on this Heat roster already. Less than 10 feet away from the basket. Now, take it granted here with a grain of salt here that he's not getting up a lot of shots. So there's low volume, but the efficiency matches his volume, which is all you're really asking for. He's shooting 46.2%. 10 feet and in from the basket. But here's where it gets really intriguing, in my opinion. His catch and shoot three-point abilities at 42.9% is elite. It's only 2.2 attempts on a nightly basis, but shooting 43% off the catch from beyond the arc is outstanding. Teams cannot leave him. They do leave him because of how unexperienced he is, but he has been making them pay on a nightly basis. And I just remember a couple times where he's getting the ball in front of the opponent's team's bench, catching it, knocking down a three, and looking at him and turning him down. Like, you're still leaving me open? Are we still doing this? And his true shooting percentage is pretty solid as well at 55.9%. But here's another reason why Nikola Jovic makes such a difference and why Bam Adebayo is the biggest beneficiary. Good word, Coop. You know, this is why we bring you around. Of Nikola Jovic starting. The versatility on offense, the spacing on offense helps Bam get inside to have more room to operate. Teams can't double him as much. When he gets to the rim one-on-one, it's allowed him to get to that one-handed right hook, left hook, that instead of settling for 12 to 15-foot jumpers, which has been the case in the past, he now can get to the rim because the defense is more spread out. That's on the offensive side of the ball. Let's look at the defensive side. The size that Jovic brings allows Miami to close out more defensive possessions by grabbing rebounds, but it also gives Bam Adebayo a more free-roaming and a rover role on that defensive side, which makes him such a menace. Like, he no longer has to sit inside with the largest and tallest player on the opposing team. Nikola Jovic can fill that role, which means Bam can switch 1 through 5. He can defend the wings like a Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Not specifically in this matchup, as Jovic didn't play against Boston, but in those types of games where Bam was able to guard Zion Williamson for most of that night, allowing Jovic to play on Jonas Valanciunas. Like, it just gives the Heat a different side of their defense. And it's been noticeable because Bam's defensive rating for the entire season is at 110.0. That's pretty good. That's in the 50 games he's played. But if you take it down to the last 7 games, and obviously one of those games in there is when Jovic didn't play against Sacramento. But, like, still, it's noticeable that in the last 6 games that Nikola Jovic has started and played, Bam's defensive rating goes down, which is a good thing, unlike offensive rating, to 106.0. So Bam has been more impactful on the defensive end, if that's even possible, when Jovic is on the court. It's that big man experience that does not give the Heat any issues offensively with their spacing, because Nikola can really shoot it from deep and he can play make and handle the rock. But the defensive rebounding ability, not giving up as many offensive rebounds, and the ability to have 2 big men that can switch inside and one of them go out there and defend the wings, that is Bam Adebayo, which makes the Heat so dangerous. And I don't think there's any coincidence that the Heat are also the #1 defensive team since February 1st, when Nikola Jovic started to get more PT halfway through the month. And Erik Spoelstra, after the game that Nikola Jovic went off in against the Milwaukee Bucks on February 13th, was asked about Jovic. He said this: he's been very dedicated. I see maturity and growth from last year to this year, even handling when we get guys back and not getting discouraged, working. He'd continue to work. When guys do that, things change. Well, the only thing I'm going to ask Coach Spo here, and listen, he's the best coach in the NBA, and you could argue he's the best coach in all sports by getting more talent out of his guys than any other coach across all professional sports leagues. You can argue that, and I will argue that. But I do not understand why Jovic is still only getting 20 minutes a night. He should be getting 25. The current rotation for Miami is Jovic starts, which is promising in its own end. He plays the first 7 minutes of the game. He exits around the 3-minute or the 4-minute, 5-minute mark in the first quarter. He doesn't return until the beginning of the third quarter, where he plays basically the entirety of the third period. So that's only giving you 19, 20 minutes a game where that comes from. You're telling me we can't squeeze out 3 minutes in the second and maybe I understand not going to him in the fourth because he is young and inexperienced. But you give me the first 8 minutes of the game. You give me the last 3 minutes of the second quarter, and then you give me the entire third period. That brings us up to 23, 25 minutes, which I think Jovic could get to play because you saw it. We displayed it in the video. His raw numbers and advanced numbers show the Heat are a better basketball team when Nikola Jovic plays. And it's not just him that gets impacted on a positive note. Bam Adebayo also is a better player with Jovic on the court, and he is your captain, and you would argue he is your franchise guy. Yes, I know Jimmy's better, but Bam is the franchise player of the future for the Miami Heat. That's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully Erik Spoelstra sees this video and is convinced to play Nikola Jovic some more. But make sure you guys are following me on Twitter, like I said off the top, because I'm going to have you guys covered in between videos on game days with everything surrounding the Miami Heat.